Well, hello, Joel. Once again, I wanted to really thank you for doing this for me. I know that this is just an interesting time that we're going through right now, and I know that a lot's on your mind. But I definitely do want you to know that I really appreciate you going out of your way to do this for me.
Absolutely, Alex. I'm excited and happy to be here today.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you enjoy that. And now, I know typically we would talk a lot about some of the stuff that's going on. But for the sake of this, and because I know you quite well as my roommate, why don't we just dig right into the action? So first up, what were kind of your initial thoughts after you took this test?
So this is actually the second time I've taken close-in strength finders, and it amazes me how much a simple test like that can tell about myself and tell me how I can better improve my habits and just the way that I interact with people in my life.
Is there any examples you can give of things that you noticed after you took your test that you're just oh, I see, now I kind of have a word to associate a pattern that I did?
Yeah, so a new close-in strength that I didn't know that I had before was intellection, which is about thinking deeply, and having conversations about different topics that philosophical or whatever, and that's something that I didn't have a word for. I knew I like to think about deep philosophical things, but I never connected those words to those topics.
Fantastic. Well, is there any sort of strength that you feel you resonate with the most?
Definitely analytical. I'm a very analytical person, as you might know.
Absolutely. I understand where you're coming from about that too. As a very analytical person myself, so what kind of ways do you see yourself as analytical? How does it inscribe in you?
Yeah. So when I see a problem, let it be in homework, or in real life, even a video game. I always enjoy digging into a problem, looking at it from different angles. In robotics, I would always literally look at it from different angles, look at it in a CAD model, look at it in a physical model, and really try and analyze what's going on and where the problems are and how to understand what's going on better.
So what I'm getting is just you typically use your analytical more of just the data side.
Yeah.
You take a lot of data, you analyze it pretty deeply, and make conclusions based on that. All right, fantastic. Because I myself also have really high analytical, and I think it's one of those strengths that can be very brought up in a bunch of different ways. Because I myself can follow along with what you're saying, but I also try to use it in different ways, and that's one of the things that why I think strengths are so cool, because a lot of people can have the same strength, but they can use it in so many different ways. So I think it's really cool how you use the analytical, try to just dig deeper into some of those problems you have. And I can definitely tell with a lot of your other strengths too that you really do enjoy problem solving, trying to get into the heart of the problem and be able to solve it from there. It's just to go along with that, why don't we talk about futuristic a little bit? So what were your initial thoughts about getting futuristic as your number one strength?
I was surprised, really. When I'd taken it before, futuristic, I think was my 5th strength, so it bumped all the way up. But recently, I have been doing a lot of thinking now that I'm in college about the future, about now, how our actions today as a country and as a world are going to affect us, 10, 20 years down the line. And Elon Musk, I think he's a big futuristic guy, and I like to follow him a lot now. And just the things that he thinks about, I really get along with.
So just for a little bit of a refresher, when was the first time you took this test?
Yeah, so last November I took this test for the first time with my 4-H ambassadors group, and then we had a group session, which was really, really interesting. And I took this test, I believe, February of this year, which, it was a year, but I had changed a lot more than I thought I had.
Absolutely. College definitely, being a new student in a whole new environment, there's definitely some things that I myself definitely had to adjust to.
Absolutely.
And so that's really good that you've kind of known how to adjust, and especially just how you adjusted and what you're good at now compared to what you were good at before. And so, like, going back to the futuristic side of things, you talk a lot about like how you are driven by like the future. Can you like sort of explain just like when you're in like a team environment, how you kind of just like develop plans involving like the future?
Yeah, so I think sustainability is incredibly important. Let that be like in a team environment, that what your actions are in a team environment are sustainable. Thinking about like the future of the team, as well as the environmentally sustainability, and from all aspects. I try to when looking at a problem or looking at a group, whether it be small or large, or like a whole body, the whole Earth. Think about the future and not only the present.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of get what you're talking about, and it's definitely like good to see too how like you're definitely an advocate for climate change. I know as well, so it's like kind of good to see, especially like with your strengths showing up too. Those definitely play a big part with how like you work with that. So it's just like really nice to see. And for your second strength, learner, can you like kind of talk about what your initial thoughts were for that one?
Yeah, I think learner was my second strength both times I took the test.
Oh, really?
I'm not surprised at all.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy learning. I enjoy school. If I had the option, if college was free, I'd probably be in college for like the rest of my life, because I love learning that much. Just learning little bits of information or learning how to solve a new problem. That's what keeps me going from day to day. I think that pretty much sums my learner up.
Absolutely, and a big aspect of learner is kind of just like the ability to enjoy the process of learning rather than just like learning in general. Can you like kind of describe how that applies to you?
Yeah, so like specifically in class, I enjoy going to a lot of my classes. Even if they are boring, I enjoy like the process. It might not always be the most enjoyable in class taking notes, but it's kind of the trials and the tribulation that lets you achieve something later. That achievement being knowing how to do something, knowing how to solve a new problem. I really enjoy the process.
Absolutely, and a learner can definitely work well with like a lot of different people too. Are there ever like any times that you feel just like some people kind of like go to you if they ever just like want someone to talk to about something new or just like a new idea that they had, because you as like a person with learner and analytical definitely enjoy those new things that they can dive into. Is that like something that you would resonate with?
Absolutely. I think you're really onto something there. In a lot of the different clubs I'm in, especially the ones I was in high school, if there was a new topic that we needed to cover, anything that we needed to research, I was often the one to step up and be like, hey, I want to do this. I'm actually going to enjoy this, and I'm going to work hard to gather this information and kind of present it to the team, in a concise, well summed up manner. Now I think I'm getting away from that a little bit because I'm just a little too busy to accept those big responsibilities in clubs. But I definitely still feel the desire to want to learn that new thing and put in the effort to learn how to use the new piece of software or something like that.
So what's kind of like your process of like learning? Do you enjoy typically trying to learn about more things you're interested in, or just like something that's just you don't really know much about at all?
It definitely varies from day to day. There certainly are days where I want to solely learn about engineering because I'm an engineering major. Just continue down that path, go down the rabbit hole of this material does this material does this. How can we utilize those in an environment to make those work really well together? And then there's different times where it's like, I want to learn about speech pathology. I want to learn about random psychology things. And so I'll go talk to friends about that and let them tell me about what they're learning about in class. And I think I pick up on some of it, and I really enjoy exploring those paths too.
And I think that's like also a big part of why you're in so many clubs.
Yes.
And I know you mentioned before about how like it was too much for you.
Yes.
And something that we like talk about with the strengths too is that just like there's like basements and that there's balconies. And I feel like one of the basements, for coming from someone with learners the number one, there's definitely like some times that you kind of just are aware that it's too much, you know, like you really enjoy the process of learning, but you can't learn everything.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just like really important that like you understand that as well, that like even though you enjoy it, that there's just like still a boundary that you have to follow. Now on to your third strength, analytical. I know we like talked briefly about it before, but like what are some like observations you had?
Anything specific or just?
Just like after just like reading this, just like was there like anything that you resonated with, or maybe on like the flip side, anything that like you disagreed with?
Yeah, so for analytical, I think I resonate with this a lot, especially because over the summer I interned for a data scientist, and so I was able to work with him to crunch numbers, look at data, and just see the power of collecting the data and looking at things from different angles. It's looking at all the data and saying, is there a pattern here? Can I somehow like pull something out of this jumble of numbers? And I enjoy that so much.
Absolutely. That's like a really like driving forward for a lot of people, is that just like being able to just go into this challenging problem and then just like diving in to the root of it and then being able to solve it from there. Is that like something that you would like agree with, just like having those challenging problems and then just trying to solve them in that way?
Yes, absolutely. And additionally, like adding to that, if there's a problem and I figure out how to solve it one way, I kind of, if I have the time and like am bored enough sometimes, I like to like try and do the same problem, but go a different way. See, can I approach this from a different way? Would that make it easier? Would that make it harder? Or what else can I get from taking a different path?
I think that's like definitely your learner coming up a bit there too. It's just like always wanting to just like know more ways to do the same thing. So I think that's like really cool. But like something I did notice, and that even though like you did say that you really resonate with analytical a lot, it was one of the ones out of your like whole insight report that you didn't highlight the most. Can you like kind of explain just like why that is? Was like there anything that you didn't really resonate with analytical?
Yeah, so I'd like to say the reason why I didn't underline as many things is because analyzing things takes a lot of time, and I definitely say in the past I've been like more analytical. I still enjoy being analytical, but I'm not as analytical in all of the things I do now from a time aspect.
So like what I'm getting at is that like you enjoy using your analytical, you just like don't necessarily use it as often, but there's like definitely some times where you always would like bring it up and because you just like have it in your back pocket.
And there definitely are times where I wish I could bring it up more often, but I know I need to come up with a solution now rather than approaching it from all the different angles.
Do you think like that's a big problem? Just like time management, just like not having enough time to solve problems?
I certainly say it's not a good thing. It's probably a small problem right now, but I haven't ran into any like life-stopping challenges. But I think in the future I should definitely make an effort to draw back so I can utilize my analytical strength, because I think it is one of my strongest strengths.
Absolutely.
Even if it isn't number one on my report.
I would definitely say like my analytical is also number 3, but I would say it would definitely be the one I resonate with the most. So I kind of like understand where you're coming from with it just like not being at the top, but it definitely still being there. Now moving on to number 4, let's like talk about Achiever a little bit. So like Achiever is definitely one that's really popular throughout like the whole assessment from like the 20 million people. Achiever's like, I think the top one that's most common among people.
I believe it.
And so it's like, what did you kind of notice after you first read about it?
Yeah, so if I could like sum up Achiever in like my own words, it's a lot of you have the desire to do more, and the way that you try and accomplish more and try and do more is by planning out your future. Let that be like your own day, your week, your month, your year, your next 40 years of your life. I've done that before. Just planning out things, sometimes to an inappropriate extent, in order to try and get like an extra ounce out of your life. I think analytical. It's one of the ones that's famous for like when you like go on a walk or you have to like travel. You think about what you're gonna think about like on the journey. I think that's really funny, but I have to say I've done that myself. I've done that several times before.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that too. Just like just noticing all of these like really tiny things that just like don't even matter. That's definitely something that I relate to as well. And like one of the things with Achiever is that they're very driven to always like want to achieve something. So I know like a lot of people with Achiever that like they basically don't feel like their day is fully started unless they accomplish something.
Yes.
Would you like say that kind of has something to do with your motivation?
Yeah. I definitely have had days where I've realistically accomplished a lot, but I haven't had any like defined like boxes I can check, and it feels like a bad day. You kind of say like, what did I do today? I can't like think about something that I can check off. Like I worked on that. That's not good enough. Is like I finished this section of something that I worked on. If I can check that, that makes me feel a lot more satisfied about what I worked on during the day. I mean, I have like found that in my notes or like my little agenda, I try and make things checkable. So if it's something really really big, I break it out into smaller categories, and I try and accomplish like a task at a time. And I can check it and move on, and like throw that in the back, so I don't have to worry about it. And that really motivates me. But if I don't have anything to check off, it really doesn't. It can drive me down.
Absolutely. I think that's like definitely a really important aspect is just like understanding your boundaries, like your limits. And I think it's like really good how you like always have a plan for your day, like what you want to accomplish. I think that's like definitely something big for an achiever is since they are driven by like wanting to accomplish goals. They really definitely thrive after they are able to like finish what they wanted to do in the day. Are there like ever any times when even though you like kind of make it into like smaller pieces, you like chunk it out a little bit more? Are there ever times you like feel that if that's something that's sometimes still too much, and does that get you discouraged as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, especially on like a lot of large team projects that I work on, I can get discouraged really easily because it's a really large project, and it's not just my own work that I have to worry about and that I can like check off and for like the entire design. So specifically with CAN satellites that we're developing in aerospace experimental propulsion. There's a lot of different parts to it, and I'm a little worried about it. I've worked on my side of things that I said I would get done, but then the other people, they're also working on it, and I think they're very well off, but I'm worried about it. I don't have any like boxes that I can check for their progress, because I am a little bit of like, I want control, I want to know what's going on at all times, which I don't know if that directly relates to Achiever, but...
Oh, no, yeah, like that definitely does relate to Achiever because for a lot of the times, like people with Achiever, they definitely work best around other people with Achiever as well.
Yes.
And so like, how do you like deal with others not being able to always like accomplish their tasks because they don't have the same motivation that you do?
It can be hard sometimes. I think I think everyone can be motivated in the way that achievers are by putting it in like the right frame of reference.
Okay.
Different people are motivated in different ways, and if you can, put a goal or a challenge in what matters to them, what's important to them. I think that has helped me, work well on a team and be a leader in teams on the past.
Absolutely. I think like that's also partly like your analytical coming out,
Yeah.
being able to like observe kind of how others do things
Yes.
and look at things
Absolutely.
too. So I can definitely like see all of your strengths coming out in like a lot of these certain problem solving scenarios. So that's like really cool to see. I'm glad that you kind of like definitely have a pretty good understanding of yourself and like how to work around your strengths. That's like really enjoyable to see.
Absolutely.
And now let's talk about your last strength, intellection. This was like kind of the first one that you talked about a little bit because it was different than what you had in your previous one. So kind of just like, what were your first thoughts about seeing intellection on your?
So I think I already talked about this a little bit, but I thought it was strange. My middle three strengths, I think, work really, really well together, and I think they're kind of similar. But intellection is kind of like an oddball. I think it ties in with futuristic in a way, like in the way that it's a philosophical idea that, or some technological ideas that I'm thinking about in the future, or now. But yeah, just lots of thinking and talking to people smarter than I am in different subjects, and all that.
And like that's the thing with strengths, because definitely like intellection and futuristic are pretty common to have together because, like you said, they are like pretty similar. While like futuristic is more just like thinking about the future rather than the present. Intellection is just like what you said, kind of just like pondering about a lot of things. But like that's the thing I really enjoy about the strengths is just like how many different ways that they can go together with like your different strengths. Because I know you talked about how like they didn't work well with your like 2 to 4. But there's like definitely some like circumstances that like they could go together, which is like individualized for you, compared to other people. And so, like, how do you feel that you use your intellection compared to like some of your other strengths on a team?
Yeah. So for intellection, I think I utilize that strength the least out of my 5. And I think that kind of ties in with analytical, like in a way. But I'll explain that. Intellection, I think, is a lot. It requires a lot of time. Laying in bed at night, you can't sleep, and you think about things. And I think that goes along with analytical, like looking at things from different angles. But then there's also like a disconnect there because analytical, I think, is like very directly a specific problem, while intellection is just like thoughts. And I think they like work. They can work well together, but they don't always, because intellection is just oftentimes like drawing me away from what I'm trying to work on, and it's just thinking about random this or that.
Do you ever feel like with your intellection that you want to like learn something new based on like what you ponder?
Absolutely. Actually, I used to do this all the time. I would, my junior year of high school, I had a Wikipedia on standby, like at all times. So I'd be in class, and they'd say something, say you're not gonna learn about this in this class, but it's really interesting. I'd be like, that's my thing. Write it down, and read a Wikipedia article on it later, or during lunch. And I found myself, reading a back of a milk carton and looking at every single word on Wikipedia that I didn't know from that milk carton. I learned a lot of things actually from that milk carton, but pondering things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like that kind of would go with your like learner a little bit too, because it's just like you just think of so many different things in that
have to learn about.
Yeah, because they're just like so interesting too. So that's like definitely something that like can relate to, and it's like really good to see how you're like kind of understanding how like these strengths work together, because like that's not always something that when they first learn about the strengths that they can put together, but I can definitely see that you're already like a few steps ahead and kind of like know a little bit about your strengths, which is really neat. So like final thoughts, are there like anything that you want to add before we conclude?
Nothing too specifically, but I think my intellection, as well as my learner, really like have worked together to let me understand coaching strengths better. I've been thinking about how they play together and all that, and it's incredibly interesting to me. So thinking about all these different possibilities, run through different scenarios about how they work together, or how they don't work together, in order to I think get a better grasp on these. But I think that's the only thing I have.
Well, awesome. Well, Joel, once again, thank you so much for doing this for me. It was definitely a lot of fun. I really enjoyed talking to you, someone who doesn't necessarily know as much about the strengths, but I can definitely tell that you have a lot of knowledge. I'm sure that is your intellection, like your learner, your analytical coming up, and I think that's really cool. So it was really great to kind of just get your point of view for a lot of these strengths, because I know that we do have a lot in common. So it was really cool to see how you use them compared to me. But thank you very much once again, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, well, thank you, Alex, for leading me through this session. I really enjoyed hearing about everything you had